Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Talk. We're again, John, Dave and myself. We're going to look back over the Six Nations matches last weekend, look forward to our game against Wales and the other matches in the Six Nations, and also our game against Zebra on Sunday. So boys, 28-6 against Scotland. Game of two halves, Brian.
It was a game of two halves, but it struck me that it was what we saw was nothing that we haven't seen before. If you're a Leinster supporter, indeed probably a Munster supporter or an Ulster supporter as well, the week before a bigger game, we saw a pretty cagey performance from Ireland against Scotland. I had a feeling that there were things, moves, tactical things being kept in the back pocket so as not to give Wales any fodder for video analysis. It was a good start to the campaign. I mean, obviously Scotland were dogged for the first 35 minutes, but once we got maybe not necessarily the first try, but once we got the second score in the second half, that was the end of it as far as they were concerned. They kind of gave up, and then what we did what Joe Schmidt teams often do. The bench come on and it actually takes the pace up. And Scotland couldn't live with that.
Yeah, well, not only did they keep some backs moves under wraps, but they kept some players under wraps. I mean, I don't think Gordon Darcy was that sick. Paul O'Connell, maybe, I believe Luke Fitzgerald is out now, but at the time I was thinking that he's just keeping all those guys for any little niggle at all. He's just going to rest them and keep the main get by with as little as we can against, for the same reason as the tactical reasons. Get by with as little as he can for a week and come back
didn't train today,
against Wales. No, I realise that now, but that was my thinking at the time when I saw it. Because if they were all coming back fit and firing, having a fit Darcy, a fit O'Connell, a fit Fitzgerald, all coming back into the team, and possibly a couple of others, all coming back into the team fresh, where and the major players were also taken off. Sexton, nobody played 80 minutes. Bod came off early for McFadden.
Yeah, he brought on all of his 8 subs.
And exactly, and the guys who did leave on, Trimble, who is a good, he had a great game, good strong player as well able for 80 minutes. Jamie Heaslip, could play 120 minutes every week and come back smiling.
Dan Toohey
played it all. Now there's a guy who could find himself, because of his performance, back in the team, or back at least on the bench. Where McCarthy would have been ahead of him in the autumn, he isn't any longer. Actually, Dan Toohey, there's a man who he performed way ahead of your expectations.
Yeah, he did.
Of him anyway.
Well, no, I wouldn't say he performed ahead of my expectations. I've always thought he was a good footballer. I just was always worried that he'd do something stupid.
The word of box of spanners always seems to come into
he
your
always
vocabulary.
He always does something stupid in the match, and he didn't. And that was Joe Schmidt requires 3 things, and they're his 3 watchwords. You'll see them up in any dressing room that Joe Schmidt is for teams coaching: relentless, disciplined, humility. Those are the 3 things he wants from his players. And what we saw from all the players he played, and Dan Toohey, he was relentless and he was disciplined. I mean, I don't think there's any problem with him being humble or anything like that. He's not a Billy Bidbollocks or anything like that, but he has done stupid things. He didn't on Sunday, and that was the key thing.
Brilliant
and it was a superb performance from him. I mean, it's the highest compliment you can give any player, is a lock, to say that we didn't really miss Paul O'Connell. And that's.
But maybe it was the quality of the opposition.
That's
as
what I was going to say. That might be more a function of the opposition, because I'm sure if we were up against Alan Wynne Jones, you'd miss Paul O'Connell. But certainly against Scotland, we didn't.
Speaking of the opposition, they put up a bit of a show in defence, but if they were still playing that game, I don't think they would have scored a try. Actually, last week we said they weren't going to score tries, and after the game, somebody said to me something like they were the second highest try scorers in the last 6 nations, or something. There's some stat anyway where they were, and I was going, really? Jeez, I didn't do my research. And then they went out and proved us right by failing miserably to show any kind of. The only way they were going to score is if somebody kicked kicked away to Stuart Hogg and he ran the length of the pitch. Well, that was their only attacking weapon.
They have 2 chances of scoring a try. One is like a number of tries we saw this weekend, actually. Bounce of a ball, something like that. Or Stuart Hogg does something. You keep Stuart Hogg quiet, you keep Scotland's backline quiet. It's as simple as that, and that's what we did. I mean, there was every area of the pitch was something that was you could be really, really happy with. I thought the back row looked like a real unit. Didn't
in the second half.
Well, no, even in the first half. I mean, because you're
I
talking.
thought Denton played very well,
Denton,
and I thought that they actually got a bit of the edge in the first half, and especially I
Denton
think
nearly got in for a score.
and I think kind of reflected by the amount of possession that they had. But as you said, they did no penetration.
Yeah.
But then our defence was outstanding. I mean, O'Driscoll tackled everything. He was back to his old days where he was just.
But you see, the thing is, they had plenty of ball in the back row. But then 6 to 7 phases into it, up a pop Peter O'Mahony, take the ball off them. And that's kind of like, if you can see that many turnovers, that's the back row's fault to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's not all the back row's fault, but to a certain extent it is. And I mean, against a side that one of the weaknesses that was trumpeted maybe about the Irish back row was that we didn't have an out and out groundhog at open side, and we might be a bit slow at the breakdown. But
Johnny O'Connor was probably the last one of them we had.
Johnny O'Connor or Keith Gleeson or one of those. But what Joe did was tactically very astute. There was a certain amount of criticism of Peter O'Mahony for not making a huge number of tackles.
Yeah, I saw that.
But if you watch the game, what he did was he actually, and it was very hard to do.
He was the second man in.
Yeah,
all the
it's
time,
very, very hard to do. I mean, you played the game all your life. I mean, how hard is it not to make a tackle if you think about it? Because
Never made one in my life, so
no, but when you're supposed to make a tackle, how hard is it not? Because you played rugby since you were 7 or 8. To have that discipline to say, hold on, there's somebody else here. He'll make the tackle, and I'll go in as the second man in to try and win the ball. That's extraordinarily difficult to do, an extraordinary discipline from a player who hasn't always been that disciplined.
But again, you mentioned the word discipline, and that's a great, one of the mottos from Joe Schmidt uses. But it's that discipline that he had to keep that, and also to stick to the game plan.
Exactly, and that's the thing that you have to actually. I mean, people have been more provincially biased supporters, even than I, have been attempting to castigate him for his low tackle count. I'd actually praise him for it, because that meant he did what he was supposed to do.
Well, I wasn't standing there when Joe was giving him his marching orders, but I'll certainly take your word for it. He did what he did very well.
In terms of the players, there isn't a huge amount of difference between Henry and O'Mahony. I don't think so. Anyway, in terms of their playing style, I mean, they're both.
O'Mahony's a lot faster.
O'Mahony's a lot quicker, but maybe
which is not normal in the blind side open side combination.
Henry's more of a footballer. He's a better footballer. But apart from those small differences, O'Mahony's more physical, perhaps.
But actually,
they're both actually quite similar. They're both kind of again, it's a much used phrase, 6 and a halves.
But Henry was actually. There was 2 instances in the game. One, O'Driscoll made a break and he popped it up to him, but it hit his knee and he knocked it forward. And there was a second one in the lead up to Rob Kearney's try that I think was Best gets a lovely offload, but it was Henry that was in support. So he kind of was growing into the role, under the Schmidt regime and the way that he wants to play, creating those mismatches and a little offload. Then,
well, the question is, I mean, you can ask the question. Like Leinster were asked the question, after 2009, how do you replace Rocky Allison? The answer is you don't. How do you replace Sean O'Brien? The answer is you don't. You don't even try to. You take the players that you have, you look at their strengths, you play to those strengths, and that's what Ireland did on Sunday.
Well, anyway, we scored 3 nice tries and we got off our campaign to a good start. So why don't we have a look at the first one?
Well, the first one starts with a brilliant break from Johnny Sexton. We've missed seeing this in blue. It's great to still see it's there in green.
He's some turn of pace.
He does.
Just really.
This pass is a thing of beauty.
Certainly was at pace. And to appreciate what it.
Should Jamie have done better?
Should he have passed?
Was
there a player to catch it?
It's hard to know. It's easy to be wise in hindsight. He obviously fancied himself to make it to the line. You got to back the player,
and he very nearly did.
So no try. Now there was a phase in between this and what we're going to see next, where we turned over a line out and kicked away or attempted a penalty, but then we came back for our line out from the penalty. And
but I thought it was good leadership by Heaslip to go for the line out rather than take an easy 3 points.
Well, they obviously felt they had it in the maul. I mean, the maul kind of comes down here, but it was obvious throughout the game that we had them on toast in the maul.
They refocused and went low again.
Yeah. The great thing to watch here is actually, even like obviously it goes well here for Cian Healy, but there was Dan Toohey actually gets driven back in the tackle, but nobody panics. If you watch it here, nobody panics. Everybody just resets. The ball is reset, and it actually gives us the opportunity. A couple of wide passes. Rob Kearney takes a dinner. Yeah, very narrow.
So narrow.
Yeah, but they're narrow because we pulled them in. Now
that's exactly what happened. We sucked them into the maul because they had to defend the maul, or it would have been a try that way. So
in fairness, you'd be disappointed if your team got dragged that narrow after only 2 or 3 phases. But it was there. The guy spotted it. That's the decision making you want to see. Really good passing here. Rob does well to suck in his
He
man
did,
on the
yeah.
drift. Takes a dint for it, but it has to be done. Trimble gets past a fairly sneaky attempt at a foot trip here from Stuart Hogg.
Yeah.
Nice try. Trimble deserved it. I mean, he's been waiting long enough for his chance. He's taken it when it's arrived. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that.
I think Joe Schmidt stuck him in there because we didn't have a big winger like
Yeah.
Bo. We were missing Bo, so we needed him. It was him or Fergus McFadden was going to fulfil that role of a big A defender and B somebody who's going to burst through, and he can come in off his wing as well. He's a good.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
he seems to. Like he does have a good try scoring record for Ireland. Like I
Yeah.
remember watching him against Italy a couple of years ago. I think he got 2 tries in that game.
He actually has a good record for Ireland. I mean, he always has had.
I mean, I remember going over to Paris. I think in about 96. I think, or 06, and a long time ago. No, he wasn't
that
playing. But
Paddy Trimble, his father?
in 06, and it was like it was the game I think where we were being hammered by about 40 points, and then something was said at half time, and we ended up scoring about 35 points in the second
I
half.
remember that one, yeah.
But Trimble played very well in that game, and I think he was playing centre.
centre,
Yeah.
And but like
It's
he
not
was kind
08,
of.
actually, was it?
No, I think it was
Was
06.
it 06?
I think it was
Yeah.
06.
But like he's got that try scoring record for Ireland.
He comes in for a certain amount of criticism. I've always thought he was a very good winger.
But, I think it's a bit of that provincial stuff.
Yeah.
Oh well, our player because he's not picked any. Then the opposition obviously he's got to be worse than the fellas playing for Leinster.
I think if everyone were fit and well, he wouldn't be in the side. But I don't worry when I do see him in the side.
We all want Ireland to do well, and we have to. Like we always said, oh well, Ireland have only got 15 players or 12 world class players. We need to have 30 world class players, and every one of them being able to. If Bo is out of the team, you need Trimble to be equally as good to get in there. Like that's why the All Blacks are so good.
Well, that's it. I think to a certain extent, previous coaches, both O'Sullivan and Kidney, actually narrowed the squad.
Yeah.
More than was necessary. I think guys were used.
O'Sullivan definitely. even
Guys were
more so.
used and kind of discarded a bit before they needed to be. Kidney kind of did the same
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. I mean, you think back to just prior to the World Cup in 07, he basically left the first 15, telling them, therefore, you're the starters.
Yeah.
Brought the Bs and the Cs off to Argentina for the tour. Then I remember during the World Cup, O'Sullivan was interviewed during it, and he said, you never used your bench. And he basically said, well, who's on the bench is better than was playing? Like, that's a ridiculous attitude.
And ironically enough, speaking of Andrew Trimble, he was one of the 15 start. No, he was one of the 15 starters at the time.
But he actually had a very poor game against France. If
He
you
did,
remember,
yeah.
Oh,
in
yeah.
that match, yeah.
That did him a lot of harm.
Up in knots.
But what happened was, I mean, the RFU had spent a fortune on Brian Kearney, and it didn't work out at all.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, anyway, but no, I was glad to see Trimble get his try. I mean, he's worked hard enough. He's worked hard for Ulster all over the years, so
Yeah.
he deserves his reward.
And what about the hardest working man in professional Irish rugby?
Oh yeah, well, he does his job. Nice scrum against the head here. But that's the kind of thing you expect of Jamie. I mean, it's a nice move across before we even get to the line out that causes the
Carney had
the
a
try.
good game too.
Yeah, he always does play well
It
though.
was Dave Carney. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
It was hard to find anybody who had a really crap game.
Yeah, he always seems very calm, which is a good thing.
He's
isn't it?
understated, Dave. He's understated.
Tastefully understated.
Yeah.
But look, once again, in this particular instance, we had a penalty, and again we went for the
The line, yeah.
for the line out.
And
It shows ambition within the team.
There's a Joe Schmidt trademark coming up here, and what can you tell me what it is yet, kids? The long maul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That long maul with the ball right at the back makes it so obvious if you try and do anything to bring it down.
Yeah.
You're left
Looks
to try
funny
and,
though.
It does look funny, but you're left to try and stop it, and you're not going to stop that maul. So
And it looked like Jamie got that, but I think it was given the best in the end.
no, it's given to Heathcliff.
Was it?
Yeah,
it was given to him there.
yeah.
I thought
Best
they
kind of
changed.
gave him back the ball as if to say, I know
Yeah.
I was kind of my fingers were on it as well, but it was your ball. But it was interesting just before that when we took the ball against the head, it was in the scrum. I was listening to the BBC, and Keith Wood was actually saying that he's now going to clubs around the country, obviously down in Limerick, giving them scrummaging lessons on how to hook the ball.
And how to hook the ball,
and he was
yeah.
saying he's met hookers that haven't actually struck
Ever
a ball
hooked the ball,
in 10 years.
There's probably guys in
course.
professional
And
rugby. There's
is your
probably
man,
guys.
Young that plays for Leicester
Yeah,
in England.
yeah.
He's never had to actually hook a ball.
Of course.
Well,
not.
he's a line.
And he's a line.
He's
but
a line,
he
he's
used to
never
be-
had to hook a
he
ball,
used to
that's
be a
what I'm saying.
centre though, but
Yeah.
obviously.
But
Centre up until 06, I think.
So anyway, when we look at Rob's try, I think this is the best try.
This is a
of the
nice
lot.
try, yeah. Lots of good play, lots of good stuff to Dan too. He great offload to Henry. He tries the offload, but it's a bit tight. But then, nice line coming up from Rob. They weren't all
He
that
had
interested.
An awful lot to do, but
That
like you
is
say,
shocking tackling.
they weren't very interested.
He handed off a blindside flanker. I mean, that's
And there was
criminal.
4 of them there as well.
Yeah.
And bumped a prop.
Yeah,
Rob Kearney bumps prop. I think
We
that
were-
should go down
His
in that,
50
the annals.
caps have crept up very quickly. Like,
Yeah.
They have. It doesn't seem all that long ago
No.
when he was playing out in Naas for
Handsome
Leinster
young-
in Michael Cheika's first
Yeah.
game.
Handsome young revolutionary.
Yeah. No, it was nice play. It was very.
It
Like-
really started to gel, didn't it, in the second half? It really started to look like it was going somewhere.
Yeah, you could see the offloading had started in the second half. You could see the players were really comfortable with what they were doing. It always takes a while to get into a game or get into a season, you know.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Wales later, for example. It always takes a while, but you know, it was a good result. I mean, we got exactly out of the game what we wanted. I mean, it wasn't the world's greatest performance. Scotland are pretty poor, so it wasn't the world's
Fairly
greatest
bad.
win. But what it was exactly we are now exactly where we needed to be after this game.
But I think it was just the right game for Schmidt as well, because
Yeah.
we obviously we got the win. We didn't play brilliantly. We were sufficient.
Plenty of work-ons.
Plenty of work-ons. And, you know, some things worked very well at our line-out. Like, for the first try, we stole one of their line-outs. We stole a number of their balls. A few, obviously, overthrown balls again. There always seems to be one or two of those. But then we got one against the head. So the set piece worked very well.
Well,
Lineouts
like I said at the start, I mean, every single kind of, if you like, area of the pitch actually worked out pretty well. I thought the halfbacks played very well. Back three worked well as a unit. Like you said, the line-out went well. The front five, our scrum was very good.
Was.
And that it actually improved with the substitutes that came in. Because we were able to maintain a certain standard, where Scotland weren't able to maintain the standard of their starters. So we obviously exerted dominance, and that's a position actually we're going to find ourselves that's of benefit to us in the coming games. Not a lot of teams have two complete front rows as good as we do.
No, and five of them
And
are
Marty
from
got
Leinster.
his Test debut as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was great
yeah.
to see.
You know, I mean, he's had a meteoric rise.
What a year.
But even there's guys outside the thing. I mean, you look at Kilcoyne.
Mhm.
Kilcoyne is pretty good, and there's other guys there as well. Declan Fitzpatrick is unavailable.
Archer.
But, no, but you know these guys are good.
Archer's been going well, Dave.
Yeah.
He was muck 18 months ago. He was really bad.
Yeah,
But-
he's still muck. A stop clock, etc. Anyway,
Ah,
but the thing is, there's strength in depth. This is a position that was identified as a significant and potentially.
Don't forget, I think 18 months ago, we had to ship in Michael Bent
Yeah.
into, you know what I mean, as sort of the
Straight
great,
into the
the
Ireland.
great white hope kind of thing. And
Yeah.
obviously he didn't really work out, and he's been surpassed now in Leinster. You know, he probably wouldn't.
Ironically, he's been shifted across to the looser
Yeah.
side. Well, the Michael Bent thing was always
Shift him back this weekend.
Michael Benting was a case of a coach panicking. I mean, he was only ever signed to be a development player with Leinster, and it's just that we were down to bare bones, and he came in with an Irish passport, so
Yeah.
he ended up playing for Ireland. 2-3 years ahead of schedule, probably, or where he would have thought his schedule was. But the front row had been identified as a significant strategic weakness in Irish rugby, not just the Irish team or the provinces, but in Irish rugby as a whole. And you look at it now, and there's props falling out of the
Yeah,
sky.
and I always maintained that it was a number of years ago, the IRFU and the Australian Rugby Union set a diktat to their schools, and they were the only ones that did it, saying that once the scrum goes back, I think it was 1 metre,
1.5
metres, scrum was over.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of depowered the scrum and certainly hindered the development of Irish props, whereas the other countries didn't put that law in place, and as a result I think we really suffered because of it.
I was pretty sure that everyone had that.
No, well, we did. Ourselves and the Aussies were the first two.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
Well, it certainly is a problem because you've got guys. We had a system developing all but professional players in every single position, except maybe in perhaps one of the key positions in the pitch, the front row,
Yeah.
who were only scrummaging properly for the first time once they left school.
Yeah.
19,
You know, it's a
wherever,
very,
yeah.
very difficult situation to be in. But it was the game was every. I mean, to a certain extent, it was great. You're saying it was good. It was Scotland to start off with. And it was because if we say we had Italy to start off with and we won, so what? We beat Italy. You can't actually win against Italy. You can only lose. There's only
Well,
degrees of losing.
The tournament is just set
Yeah.
up absolutely perfectly.
Whereas Italy are probably actually better than Scotland at this stage.
Oh, yeah.
But we had Scotland, and Scotland have that they're a traditional rugby power. So you get a certain amount of kudos from beating them, even if you don't really
Cachet.
deserve a whole lot.
Yeah, well, I just think that, as I was saying, the tournament has been set up perfectly for us. Now, there's no point in looking too much further ahead than next weekend, but all of our games, like we have this one to warm up, and we have the Italy one for a bit of a coast when we can rest a few players if depending on what position we're in after the first three.
Yeah.
It's just set up very nicely. I know we've England and France away, which is traditionally we never do well in the year when we've England and
I
France
think
away.
it was 72 was the last time we won,
won both
and that was
places.
the season, of course, that Wales and Scotland didn't travel.
Didn't come
Yeah.
over, yeah. So that was our potential Grand Slam miss. But, it's there. If we can grab it, it's there for us. Yeah, that's not saying we'll get it, but
Yeah. Well, one thing I just wanted to go back to was actually the use of the bench. He used, as we said earlier, he
Very
used
good,
all
very
8,
well, yeah.
but every one of them that came on looked so hungry
Yeah.
to be on the pitch, and it was such a difference. Again, I think it might have been this fixture 2 years ago that Leo Cullen came on for
6 seconds.
6 seconds.
Mm.
Like
Well, there was a great interview with Martin Moore actually, and he was saying when you're on the bench with Joe Schmidt, he expects you to be an active observer of what's going on. There's none of this sitting on the bench, joking with your mates, going up for a bit of a run, coming back, having another sit down.
Yeah.
He expects you to be watching that game, and he expects you to have learnt something from what's happening, so that when you go on, you have something different to bring to
offer,
it.
yeah.
And it was just interesting that's the what's expected of the players, that they when they're sitting there waiting to come on, as you say, and because they know that they're going to get on, they know they have to do that work.
Well, he's famous for attention to detail, and he also focused the squad by having only 2 fit scrum halves and only 2 fit hookers, 2 fit loose heads, 2 fit tight heads. So everybody knew that everybody in that squad in those positions knew that they were playing. Whether it was for 10 minutes or 60 minutes or 70 minutes, they were they're all going to get a game. So it just allows them to. Like it's like it's art or something he does with the way he blends the team, both in selection and in deployment from the bench. It's it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, well, so anyway, there was other matches on at the weekend. Wales played Italy, very unconvincing victory. They decided to have a little chip through in the first minute, and the poor lad making his debut on the wing had a howler and let it go by, and I think Cuthbert went in and
Cuthbert, yeah.
We said last week that Wales were traditionally they're quite slow starters, and so they proved.
It was good for them to get Italy first up.
It was good for them that they got Italy first up. Well, it was actually worked out very well for them, because Italy are actually, they're stiff opposition, so that's a good run up for. They've had exactly a good hard game under their belts now as well.
And they did come back into it, Italy as well.
Yeah, I thought Italy were really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, if they hadn't conceded that try and they had have got a conversion, they would have been so close.
There was very little in the game.
You had
Paredes
Paresi,
and
I know,
balls and
of course,
stuff
yeah.
going on
No,
there.
I appreciate that, but like Paresi was penalised for a knock on, and it didn't look that it was a knock on. He was in. It was,
No, there was also, Campanero in the centre obviously was the standout man. I thought he was superb. But their halfbacks looked really good. Your man Tommaso Allen looked really, really good. Obviously the centres, Italy have a decent enough back line. They've always had decent outside backs.
Halfbacks
They
were
look to-
always since Troncon
but they look to
and
have them now.
Diego
Dominguez
retired. They have
look to have, but then that's the thing with Italy. They always look to have. Orquera last year looked like he was one of the best out halves in the world for 50 minutes, and then
And
it
then
all
you have to
fell
make a
apart.
tackle.
So we wait until next week to.
and then your friend Bergamasco.
But no, he's the one I like. Mauro's the good Bergamasco. It's Mirko's shit Bergamasco. So
I think you were probably referring to him being thrown in the deep end as a scrum half,
Yeah.
more than anything else.
no, I think at his time, at his peak, Mauro Bergamasco, you could argue that he was up there with Richie McCaw, one of the best open side flankers in the world.
Wales have picked their team today, and they have Priestland and Phillips at halfback. Like Priestland, he's not.
Little bit of a busted flush there. You heard Rog talking about him, the way he can charge his kicks down quite easily. He's get-atable. He's very get-atable. Now, Phillips is the one that I think is a bit of a busted flush. Great player on his day and in his day, but he's been found out a bit, I think, lately, and he hasn't been the fittest in the last. On the Lions tour, he was shown up quite badly. I don't know how his fitness is at the moment.
And kind of usurped
in and out of
at
clubs.
the end of the Lions tour by
Conor Murray.
Conor Murray, who I thought had a fine game.
I thought Conor Murray was a far better player than him on that tour. Now Phillips has been a great player for a long time,
So
so to a certain extent, there's a danger that he could play from memory, if you like.
Well, I take both or either of our halfbacks ahead of both or either of their halfbacks.
Priestland, you see,
every
people will
day.
say why isn't Bigger in the team, and I can't understand. Bigger's a far better player. He's far better.
I'd have Bigger.
Yeah.
Even
But
on the bench.
Priestland serves the power game. Wales's game is all about power, right? There's no cleverness or guile to what Wales do at all. And especially with Jonathan Davies not there. There's none. It's all about power. Power coming through the centre, power from their back row, and then the ball being spread wide to powerful runners running at pace. They don't have a trick between them, Cuthbert and North. They don't have a trick between them. But
Score a shitload of tries, though.
They have a huge amount of power and a huge amount of pace, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
But you just have to be up in their face.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier, you just can't let them get ahead of steam.
Well,
Well,
that's one of
You
the
have
things
to
that
tackle them at
Yeah,
source.
well, we say the tournament's about momentum. This whole game is about
Yeah.
momentum, literally. If we can stop them getting up momentum, if we can stop their players utilising their power, there's not a whole lot else that they have. They certainly can't rely on Priestland to kick them out of trouble if they can't. Priestland can't change the game because he can only play one way.
Yeah.
And it's not like they used to be, where they used to have somebody like with a bit of guile, like say Shane Williams, who could make something out of nothing
Run
with a
around
little
you.
bit of cleverness or some dancing feet. They don't have that anymore. If they're not able to apply power,
Bosch.
they can be stopped.
Yeah. Well, I think that their centre partnership worked very well against Italy.
Certainly did, yeah.
And, Roberts is coming into some fine form at the moment. Like, he set up a gorgeous try for Williams.
Robert, now
But a fit Davies beside him would be a serious
he's the
proposition.
brains of the operation to a certain extent.
Yeah, and he's not fit quite.
And the thing is,
They didn't even make their 23.
I don't want to be. See, I think those players are great players. I think they're brilliant players. But they are brilliant players within the game plan. Outside of it, I mean, how many times have we seen Jamie Roberts come over? Now, you could argue that he's not interested because it's only Cardiff. How many times have you seen him come over and getting walloped around the place?
For Racing Metro as well.
For Racing Metro as well. You'd have to quit because, at some point, you can't just switch it on and off. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You just can't.
Well, what I was a little disappointed with, I didn't mention in the Scottish game analysis, at the first half, our line speed in defence was fairly putrid. We weren't at them. And in the second half, it was transformed, and we can't start like that against Wales, because if we don't cut them down, you said it earlier, if we don't cut them down quick and often, and somebody like North gets a bit of a head of steam, we are in trouble.
And the problem they have, I mean, Jamie Roberts is a good player and all that. If you rush up on O'Driscoll or Darcy, they can do something with their feet, or they can do a clever offload or something. That's not really something that Roberts has in his playbook, So if you can cut them down without getting up power, they have to go into phase play after phase play after phase play. They can be quite predictable. Now, you know what they're going to do, and you still can't stop it. That's what often happens with Wales.
Yeah.
But if you know what they're going to do and you can stop it,
Which we're hopeful.
Yeah. A couple of other interesting selections was Warburton and Gethin Jenkins as well were selected.
Not quite fit players as well, like they're relying on.
It's only going to be Warburton's second game in
Yeah.
2 or 3 months.
yeah. But Warburton's a fine man and a great captain. You'd have to wonder, is he playing better than Tipperich though? And I'd have to say the answer is no, because he hasn't been playing at all hardly.
I'd have all two pricks now,
Yeah.
definitely, for sure. Good in all player, and he is he's great at spoiling your ball and great at making things hard at breakdown time. But so is Tipperich, and
Yeah. One thing that I think
he's fast as well, and he's a great link man.
I
and
think
he's-
Tipperich is a superb player.
Yeah.
Like, I think when you look at the team on paper, I certainly think that in most positions the Irish are stronger. But one thing that's going against us is we'll have that 6-day turnaround.
Yeah.
Now, I did read that while the lads were in camp down in Carton for 2 weeks, that they used the first week to prep for the Welsh game,
yeah.
and then they used the second week just for Scotland. So they have a lot of the analysis done, even though they're only going to be coming back into camp today, Tuesday.
Oh yeah, I could well believe it. I'm sure that. We've known about the 6-day turnaround for 11 months, so
Yeah.
it's not exactly a huge surprise. So, it's not ideal, but there are worse things that could happen. Losing players to injury would be worse. And apart from the guys that we kind of knew were going to be out or have been out, we're actually okay,
Yeah.
injury wise.
Sean O'Brien,
Sean O'Brien is the only one
the
that's
only really big
And
loss.
Luke.
And Luke is out, but there's guys who can replace him. Sean O'Brien is the one guy who's kind of out and irreplaceable
Tommy
to a certain
Bowe.
extent. Yeah.
We just start throwing one in every 10 seconds.
No, but we have those guys. You say Tommy Bowe and Luke are out, but you've got Zebo's back fit. 2 boys who played on Sunday played well. You've
Zebo
got
will return, I'd say, for
Fergus
England.
McFadden. There's guys. So I'm not. They're not positions I'd worry overly about. Obviously, you'd like to have Tommy Bowe there because he's, he knows the Welsh wingers' games very
Absolutely.
well. But then so do most of the players. They play against them often enough between the Heineken Cup and the Pro 12.
Well, turn our attention to another classic served up by Nigel.
Yeah.
France 26, England 24.
He got a classic line out as well. And the Joey Barton commented on it because the Uge and Mike Brown were going head to head, and Joey Barton commented on in soccer that'd be a red card. What did Nigel Owens do? He told the two of them to behave like grown ups and get out of his sight.
Yeah, well, it was a thriller of a game.
Yep.
I have to say, it really was. England probably should have won it. France did what the All Blacks did to us, I suppose, and just kept playing, and they got through at the last minute with the, you know.
Oh, England.
Was it San Andre's fabulous man management bringing on the sub at the...
right.
No. France won that game. France won that game because of two lucky bounces, quite frankly.
Yeah.
England were by far the better team for almost the entire match.
Yeah.
We'll be much happier this week when they go in and look at the game on video. Actually, once the disappointment of losing actually...
They won't be so happy when they look at the table, though.
No, but once
Sadly.
the England are in a much better position than France, despite in terms of the development of their team. England were the better team for virtually the entire match. France picked the moment Bastereau came. They only started looking like a team when Bastereau came off. He was an absolute roadblock for the French midfield there. They took him off, brought on Ficou, moved Fofana into inside centre, and suddenly the French backs looked like a French backline.
Good news for us in Toulon in a few months' time.
Well, possibly. But France, I still don't think they're going anywhere.
But they do have the confidence of winning at home. They have that win under their belt against their old enemy. You know, like it's all, the whole tournament, as we mentioned, is all based on momentum, and they have their win.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they pick the same side against Italy, they might well have a loss as well. That's the problem, you know.
Yeah, interesting that they are actually at home again next weekend.
Yeah.
We're at
Away.
home, and in England are away, and Scotland I think are away.
No, Scotland are playing England.
Sorry, England are away as well. It's 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, a Calcutta Cup match would be interesting. I wonder how much England will win by.
Yeah, I think so. Like I think the days of the big Calcutta, they're nearly gone now. Yeah.
I mean, the Calcutta Cup match used to be brilliant. I mean, because Scotland were always really great. So I remember, was it 1990 that great when David Soul led them out at a funereal pace out of the dressing room against an England team that had their wives and girlfriends on the pitch beforehand. They actually didn't, and it was tradition. It's become written into folklore. Both England and Scotland had their wives and girlfriends on the pitch beforehand because that was how it was done at the time. But it became written into folklore that England had their wives and girlfriends in preparation to celebrate the Grand Slam. But Scotland absolutely ambushed them that day, and that was a great game. But those days are gone. Those days are gone now, and in the past they shall remain.
Yeah, definitely. And the other game is France-Italy, and again, you'd like to see Italy, you know, trying to build on their performance against Wales, but I think France are going to be a bit too strong for them.
No, they're not. No, if France play like last week, Italy could well be in with a shout of winning.
Again in France.
Again in France, they did last year. You know, they have. I think Italy have the best coach in the Six Nations, bar none, and I include Joe Schmidt in that. I think Italy have the best coach because no other coach.
Dave, jeez,
no,
steady on.
No other coach has done so much with so little as Jacques Brunel.
I heard Woody talking about playing with Philippe Saint-André, and he said when he played with him, he was the least conservative player in the world. He could do absolutely anything. I think they used to call him the pig. But he could conjure up something out of nothing. But as a coach, he's just the total opposite. Mr. Conservative.
But he was like that with
He
Gloucester
is
and
the Val
Sale.
Doonigan cardigan of coaches.
His,
you know,
his teams are very, very conservative. They play a conservative game. He makes conservative selections. I mean, he kind of was forced to bring on Ficou. But I wouldn't be surprised if he started with Bastereau again on against Italy. And Bastereau, he never looks in shape, but he doesn't look in form now. And
how many loose head props play outside centre anyway? You know, he's probably the only one. You know?
Could be room for Keane Healy there.
Yeah, there could well be.
Bloody would.
He's quicker than Bastereau these days.
One thing I thought was fascinating was getting the insight of O'Gara on RT on Sunday. Like it's amazing that like we try and talk a bit of, you know, from our limited knowledge, but these guys have been professional players for 15 years, himself and Horgan, and they really bring so much more insight into the game than the old stagers that are in situ.
Well, has O'Gara ever played for the Crowbars?
A very select few, David, have been selected for the Crowbars.
No, I thought there was one section where they went to O'Gara and Horgan for about 10 minutes, and it was just brilliant. It was illuminating. Two guys just out of the game who knew what they were talking about, talking about actual rugby. And then it went back to fecking Egypt in the studio, talking about ties and all sorts of rubbish. I mean, much as I hate the Iona Institute, I'm so much happier RTE giving them money than they're giving it to George Hook. I can't see what purpose he serves. And the thing about it is, he is doing damage to the game. I can't see why the IRFU allow him into the fecking ground in the first place. He's damaging the game of rugby because, you know, you get 4 times as many people watching a Six Nations game as you do watch a Pro 12 or a Heineken Cup match in Ireland. So that means there's an awful lot of people who are only casual rugby watchers. Then you have this
young, impressionable people.
Yeah, you have this Egypt spouting shite out of him. But that becomes the currency on the street because they think that he knows what he's talking about because he's in the same position as a Giles or a Dunphy. And he's not. He's a clown. He should be just pelted with custard pies and fucked off into the sunset.
Well, I thought it was interesting when they had O'Gara sitting beside him. I think for the 2 matches on Saturday, all O'Gara wanted to do was talk to O'Shea. He kind of nearly sort of ignored what Hook was saying, you know, and he was kind of saying, "Oh well, Connor, you know, well you played it as well, or you're still involved."
I thought he was trying to be polite to him, and it was a bit of an effort. Or something.
You could tell by his body language. I mean, it was the classic. His body was tilted away. He was looking back over his shoulder when he talked to him. Whatever about O'Gara's future as a coach, whatever about his past as a player, whatever about what he's doing at the moment as a pundit, he has no future as an actor because he could barely conceal his contempt for that idiot.
Anyway, let's not make it all about that poor man.
We'll draw a very dotted line on the Six Nations for the moment.
One thing I would say about Raj though, and he was excellent. I really
thought
enjoyed
he was brilliant,
him.
yeah.
But is it because we're rugby nerds that we enjoyed him? Would he turn off somebody who is a casual watcher of the game? I mean, I know he'd have the cachet of being who he is and being a great all-time player. But would you know? He's not.
I think that's what that's why RT's soccer panel historically has been so successful. And John Dodds has written about it in his autobiography. He decided he wasn't going to talk down to the viewer. When he was analysing games, he was going to analyse them at the same level as he would analyse them when he was a manager, when he was an Irish manager, a manager of West Brom or whatever. That's how he was going to do it, and the viewer deserved his
absolutely. I'm
his
not suggesting
highest
that
and most intelligent level of discourse. George Hook doesn't give us that.
Ronan
O'Gara, Shane Horgan and Conor O'Shea do.
But if you dumb it down, I mean, it's only natural. If you dumb it down and feed it to them, down. You know, and there's always this perception, oh well, like the viewers won't understand that. That's rubbish.
No, I don't think. I think
bring up the level.
I think RTE's soccer coverage has shown that the viewers are willing to understand, are willing to learn, and do enjoy, you know, intelligent people talking intelligently about a sport. They won't get it on Blues Talk, but they certainly won't get it from George Hook.
Well, anyway, now we're definitely drawing a line under the Six Nations, and we're going to talk about Zebra against Leinster on Sunday. So we're back to Pro 12 fair. We're lying second in the league at the moment, I think on 40 points. You know, we're going to be missing a huge amount of players from the squad. Obviously, the game is in Italy, so we won't get too many guys available that will be involved with the national team.
It's surprising how many positions that we're actually okay in if you go through them. We're a little tight for a bench prop on the tight head side. We're probably going to have Bent either starting or benching on the tight head side ahead of or behind Tyg Furlong. We've a few loose heads still, if you count Bent. But we've also got a few loose heads in the academy.
Yeah.
So you know we one of them, the Dooley's with the under-20s.
Yeah, he's away with the under-20s.
Byrne, who I think is slightly too old for the under-20s. He might feature. But apart from that, and the fact that we've very few wingers, our team is actually looking okay. Wingers, we're going to be dipping right down into there's only 2 non-first years on the wing in the academy, and that's Boyle and Coughlin Murray. So
I think one of them will get a start.
We probably see both of them featuring and one of them starting, and the other wing is likely to be Hudson, I think, who's
huge amount of inexperienced players in that team.
Fanning is injured, I believe.
Is Hudson not injured as well?
No, I believe he's in the squad photos, and he's training away. The other thing that is in those photos is Jordan Coughlin is training now. There's a guy 6'5", number 8, a couple of years ago, and he's been converted to 12. Will he get a run at 12 ahead of Noel Reid? I don't know.
You can carry him on the bench, and he covers 2 positions. That's the thing. So whoever falls first, he might come on for.
Well, do you want to set him back by playing him at 8? And
well, he was always traditionally more of a 7. But I mean, we're actually quite strong. I mean, like you were saying. I mean, and the thing is, no matter how badly hit we are, Zebre are hit far worse. I mean, they've literally lost their entire first team squad. All of it is gone. You know.
Well, 18 players we've lost. Have they lost 18 players?
Oh, easily, yeah.
Have they?
Oh, yeah. I think it's 18. But in I think the Italy camp is 35 players. I think they've lost 17 or 18.
Well, there's a lot of French guys that come over as well, and the squad is more Treviso than
I thought it was more Zebra than Treviso.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not. Anyway, but the thing is, I mean, we're in a much better position to cover.
Yeah,
with
absolutely,
quality.
yeah.
I mean, we lose. You know, who is our first choice out half? Actually, it doesn't matter. We lose Madigan. We have a Gopperth. You know, we lose. We're talking about losing Mike McCarthy. We lose Devon Toner. Leo Cullen comes in. You know.
Yeah, but I still think we're quite callow in other positions, Dave. Like, you know, you did mention the ones that we have a bit of strength in, but I still think, you know, we're a bit weak on the wings. We're a bit weak in centre. We're a bit weak in.
Certainly, I would say we're.
Not weak, sorry, but we are like these guys aren't.
Brandon Mackin at 13
They're
is
quite far
Brandon
away.
Mackin and Noel Reid have built up a certain amount of experience at this stage.
But they are miles away from starting in a Hinding.
Oh no, they certainly are. But
Brandon Mackin has, I think, started. If he's certainly come on
in the normal run of things, what you're saying is true, of course, that they are. But the thing is that they might be the other guys are fucking kilometres or what's bigger than a mile?
A mega mile.
2 miles.
Yeah, they're mega miles away from starting. A kilometres actually smaller than a mile, isn't it? It is. Yeah. Whatever about them being miles away, the guys they're up against will be even further away. I mean, you look at the positions, the key positions in the field where we have strength. You know, you look at the spine of the team, there's strength all the way through the spine of the team.
Well, I suppose if we were going to have to play this fixture, you're better off being against Zebre rather than, you know, a stronger, a club with more depth, I would say.
Well, I mean, Connacht, they're bottom of the league, and I definitely wouldn't want to be playing them.
Yeah.
Zebre are next bottom of the league, so
happy enough with that.
Perfect fixture, you know.
And of course, just in case people are wondering, the game isn't live on television, but RTE are streaming it. So if you go to in the island of Ireland only, so any overseas viewers we have, and I know we have a few actually, you're going to have to get those VPN things out.
Well, some other matches on this weekend.
Matches in Italy.
Ulster play Ospreys, third and fourth in the league.
That's the big game of the weekend from the perspective of the league. There aren't too many games left between the 5 people who are challenging for the 4 places at the top of the league, and that is D1 this week.
You can see Ulster leapfrog and Ospreys there. It's in Ravenhill.
Yeah,
definitely.
Ulster will have too much strength again. Ulster, for the first time, are really beginning to feel the pull of the international squad. First time in a couple of years that they've had that problem, but they seem to be, you know.
But they've got their Peeners and their Nick Williamses and their and the guys like Paul Marshall who are not.
That's why, like, we're missing one of our. Well, we're actually missing 2 of our non-Irish qualified. Like, obviously, Goodman's been injured for the season, and we haven't signed a 5th.
Yeah,
exactly. And although it was mentioned in the papers today that Leinster are looking to sign a replacement for Lottie Kiri, whether they'll be able to or not now, I don't know. But it would be a nice boost before the Heineken Cup if we could get some tasty All Black or Wallaby in, you know,
some total randomer.
But you know, Ulster have us. And as well as that, they've been developing players as well. I mean, they've young players. Darren Cave isn't with the squad.
Yeah.
Michael Allen's been going really well this season. Obviously, Jared Payne isn't with the squad. Craig Gilroy isn't, you know, unless he's called in to replace maybe Luke or
Craig Gilroy will be under instructions to play Craig Gilroy.
I'd say
give
so.
Him some game time.
He'd be raring to go as well. So I think Ulster are going to be okay. You know, they've a strong second row, even with Tuohy missing. They've Lewis and Henderson missing. They've Lewis Stevenson to come in there beside Johan Muller. You know, they'll be all right.
Yeah, I think they have a much stronger team. Like when you mention all those names, much stronger squad left in Ulster than we've got left.
Possibly, yeah.
Both teams, though, as well. Sorry to cut across you yet again, Jason, but both teams are the only 2 teams that we have to go away to in the top 5 this season, and we have them fairly one after the other-ish as well.
Yeah.
Just between the Heineken quarters and semis, so that's you know, we need to get a bit of distance ahead of them before we
start going. And the other big match is Munster against Cardiff down in Limerick. So, like, Munster 3 points ahead of us currently in the table. So you don't really see them
5 points to Munster.
Yeah. I don't see any other result in it. The only way Munster won't get 5 points is if they, you know, fuck it up themselves.
Fall in the shower.
Cardiff aren't going to stop them.
No.
There's just no. I don't see any potential outcome that has Cardiff not winning.
No.
Or sorry, that has Cardiff not losing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, obviously there was a couple of other Irish games this weekend. The under-20s had a good victory in a monsoon.
Excellent.
Down
Yeah.
in Athlone on Friday night, and the ladies had another
Even
a
better
very
one.
comprehensive victory in Ashburn.
Well, I watched obviously the two games were
Same
at
time.
the same
yeah.
time. So I was watching the under-20s, and dreadful conditions. But the one thing that always strikes me, and I say it every year about the under-20s, is Mike Ruddock's teams are always really well coached. They really know what they're doing. They have a way of playing, and they played the conditions perfectly. Another diamond unearthed in that Jack O'Donoghue. No, is that his name?
Yeah.
The back
yeah.
row,
Number 8.
Ulster back row,
Super
number
player,
8.
yeah.
Yeah,
Superb
he's very
player.
good.
A lot of good players actually. I thought that the Leinster out half, Ross Byrne, I thought was superb. In very difficult conditions. They all played well, but that's what I was at. Mike Ruddock is really good at churning out under-20 teams that all play well. It doesn't matter if they're in year 1 or year 2 of their cycle. They always look good.
Yeah, and a lot of Leinster in the team as well. I think there was 5 Munster, but in fairness, those 5 Munster all played.
They all
out
went
of
to
their
Leinster
skins.
schools. There was a couple of them went to Roscrea, wasn't there?
No, I don't think so.
I
I
thought
think they were all. Yeah,
No,
anyway.
it doesn't, not that it matters anyway. I mean, your man O'Donoghue, obviously, Frankie Sheehan was talking about him. He must be a client of his about fast tracking him into the
He's just a Cork man. It's
about
an
fast
actual
tracking him
client.
into the Munster squad next season. But actually, he's not wrong. I mean, if his development is at that level,
He looked like he got a bit of a nasty injury there when he was actually. I think he was going over for his try.
yeah, he got a bad bang. So it'd be interesting to see how he recovers. But the under-20s, I mean, to a certain extent, you don't. When I look at these, I don't necessarily want or need that team to win. What I want to see is players performing really well, a team that looks like these guys are going to develop into rounded professional rugby players. And generally, that's what Mike Ruddock has done. He's turned out quite a few of these teams one after another, produced a lot of players.
Keep him on.
Keep them on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, thanks a million, lads, and thanks a million for watching. And if you're going to the Viva on Saturday, enjoy. Cheers.